Hi there. It's been a while since I made my last video. I guess one of the important things that has happened is that the failure of the Chinese climate negotiations, completely predictable. You have to remember that the US produces per head of the country, per person in the country, 4 times as much greenhouse gases as a Chinese person does. So Chinese is about 8 ton, US is about 24 ton. So if US talks about China saying, well, you're not willing to allow stringent monitoring of your emission reductions, and that's why we will not agree with you on an emission reduction agreement, you know that's complete bullshit, because even if nobody looks in China, they're still emitting much less per person. So that's an unfair position of the US, and that's exactly the same position they had in Copenhagen. That's one that doesn't work. That's one that's instructed by corporatists, by the oil companies, because the US is a corporate state. You can say a fascist state. You know, they haven't really behaved like the German fascists yet, but that's the definition. There's a big problem with that I want to mention, and that is, of course, that if you write the law to create a rigid framework and an exclusive framework for certain businesses to operate. So let's say you make a rule that says that cars have to be this weight or that height, or let's say light bulbs emit so much light and be of that, let's say, standard. All these rules, if you create them in a time of prosperity, that's fine, because you think, okay, I can go on forever with my business and do whatever I do right now, and I'm protecting it, and I'm setting it in stone in the rule of law of my country. It's unimaginable that people, lawmakers, would lend themselves to do that. But anyway, they did, and they're doing it. But of course, if times go the other way, if you have to be more flexible, you find that you can't. You can't be flexible. And you see it everywhere now. Because, let's say, small businesses, rules have been introduced to reduce their abilities, because the big companies were operating fine. Now the big companies are in trouble, and you find that the law is not flexible enough. It can't change fast enough to adapt. So in the end, it's like the US. It's like a man tied a big rocket to his back, and fixed it very securely, so he couldn't fall off, and lit the fuse, went on a rocket ride, and finds that he really wants to cut loose. Now the rocket is heading to the Earth. He really wants to change. But he strapped himself on too tightly. He's completely locked in his own destruction. He's like Houdini in a steel cage underwater, forgetting his key. That's just tough shit. And a bad situation. So that's what I think about. That's one of the aspects that I think is just predictably disastrous about a corporate state. What I want to say about this quantitative easing is, I hope it's interesting. I think there's 2 camps. You can reason it that there's 2 camps. One of them is the one camp that wants to make a world currency fiat based. So a basket of the yen and the dollar and the pound and the euro, which is of course just like making a fire basket, or it's paper. It's worthless. Those are the financial institutions. Those are the ones that try to rob you. You know what they basically. You can say, well, you print a dollar. Each dollar has a little bit of glue on it, and then the bankers go out their window with these dollars and they wave it to something, sticks to it, and then they pull it in. It's like fishing. Fiat money is like fishing gear. They want to create that as a new world currency. First of all, because they can then hide their own problems. They can print as much as they like. They can distribute it wherever they like, and they can completely control the globe. Let's say that's the fascist, to use that term, the fascist dream, to have that type of currency. And that's the new world order that people have been talking about, speculated that that's the plan. To achieve that, well, they try to achieve that. It doesn't seem to work. So now it seems that the US is trying to draw the world into a commodity-driven war. So basically, what they do is they destroy the dollar. They wait until, because of that, the whole international trade system and transportation logistics system will more or less break down. Try to find alternatives is in big turmoil, and because of the difficulties that creates and the real needs in countries, you might see wars. It's predictable. That and a new world currency based on fiat will not really solve that, but people might hope it does. And in the crisis that is emerging because of this dollar destruction, people might go for it. And if they do, then of course, all will be well for the bankers at least. They don't care. The U.S. is already being gutted. It's like it's been stabbed to death. Every year that you see billion-dollar bonuses for Wall Street, you know that there's another body part of you that has gone. So you have lost your middle class. You've lost a lot of people that were decent. You have lots of poverty, joblessness. You lost your industry, etc. But now the other camp also can promote a world currency, and it's an idea that has already been floated a long time ago. But I'll repeat it because it has a different implication than a fiat world currency, and that is a commodity-based world currency. You can talk about gold and silver, but that's not really what countries need. That's not really what countries need to exchange. There's something about these commodity basket-based special drawing rights that is very interesting. So first of all, let's say the socialist camp of the world will try to agree with each other to create a new currency based on a basket of commodities. And you may ask, why would they do that? Well, because they want to avoid conflict. And to avoid conflict, you have to share. You have to share your raw materials, because that's what you start fighting over. And I guess leaders inherently, and the ones that like to see their people prosper, which is not the leadership in the US, clearly. They don't like to see people prosper. They like to see themselves prosper. But the socialist leaders that like to see the population prosper realize that even though the population is not willing to share, there should be sharing. That's basically the general adult attitude towards in a family. The US is taking the generally accepted childish position, the bully and the petulant child position. So it's very psychologically, it's very easy to identify the different positions. But what? Okay, I hope this video is interesting enough. But I'll explain what I mean and how it works, and you can explain it by just looking at the Eurozone. We created the Eurozone in Europe for, of course, many reasons, but one of them is to allow sharing within Europe without the need to ask the people to agree to sharing. The way it works is that if you go to Germany and you say, okay, Germany, 7% of your Germans are going to work for Spain to make it a more prosperous country with more advanced technology and all kinds of other stuff. Germans will say, Nein, raus, fuck off. But because, of course, they're Germans. They're like nationalistic a little bit, chauvinistic, and they're not gonna just work for Spain just like that. Why would they do that? Well, if you create a monetary unit in Europe, and you let the money flow through a central organ like central bank, and you borrow a billion of euros to Spain, then Spain can spend that in Germany, those euros, and voila, you get 7% of the Germans working for Spain and being happy about it. That's what that monetary unit can do. It can allow you to share amongst countries and amongst peoples to make each other more prosperous, even though people individually would not agree to do so. Now, what you end up doing with this basket of commodities is to allow distribution of commodities around the world, even though countries might be not, like the population might not be that willing to do so. And that's the socialist approach to running the world. So I guess all the while, I hope this isn't too long a video, but all the while, you know, in the reflection of the New World Order, one world currency, there has been an alternative to that, which is the commodity-based currency, which can bring equality to societies around the world, because, you know, outside the realm of influence of the man in the street, countries amongst each other can decide that they will bring steel to this country, aluminium to that country, by distributing these special drawing rights based on commodities. You know, it's always, let's say, if Australia would give its aluminium or whatever they're mining there, I don't really know, kangaroos, to France, for instance, because France has lots of shipbuilders, then it makes a lot of sense, because in Australia they'll say, hey, we got miners, they have to have something to do. And in France they'll say, hey, we have shipbuilders, they have to have something to do. Both countries will be happy. The fact that you're using the steel or the copper to allow people to have something to do, that's just a natural resource. You know? Why would you insist on being rewarded for having a natural resource in your territory? It's if you're like childish and you don't want to share, then it makes a lot of sense to sit on top of that richness and try to get as much hedonistic pleasure out of it as possible and reward as possible. But true world leaders know that it's not about that. It's about, let's say, the social coherence and the social situation in the countries that are so enjoyable and that you need to protect. So, well, maybe you agree with me. I hope you find this interesting, and thanks for listening.